Hi guys, it's Monique again. I just wanted to go over the first half of the first set of slides. Um, so, I am going to briefly go over things that maybe you might need a little more explanation on or things like that. A lot of the things you can kind of go through it and navigate on your own. But basically, the first set of slides defines psychology and it looks at psychology from a historical point of view. It looks at the subfields of psychology. Um, it looks at certain trends. Like one of the questions that's in your discussion post is about one of the trends about women in the psych field and why you think that women have started to outnumber men, even though in the past they've been discouraged. So it's talking about stuff like that. Also gives you a background on the different perspectives in psychology, and you'll see that oftentimes those perspectives keep getting brought up over and over and over again throughout the course of the class. Um, Another thing that it talks about is things like nature versus nurture. And we always hear about these things, nature versus nurture, but it's not every day that we talk about it. So, um, nature is what's innate in us. It's biological. It's um, deep down, right? Something we can't necessarily control. It's our nature. Nurture refers to outside influences that change us and that shape us and mold us. And so there's this constant conversation in the psych field about which one weighs more, which one has a more strong influence on us. Is it nature, our innate drives, or is it nurture, referring to the things that are around us, our environment, what shapes us? So think to yourself for a second about which one you think might be stronger than the other and why. There's another thing that's mentioned in that set of slides: free will versus determinism. Free will refers to our ability to make decisions on our own, and determinism highlights the fact that these decisions are already made for us. We're not making these decisions, right? The cards are kind of already laid out. We're in a particular situation, and that's what's going to happen. And even though we would like to have free will about certain things, sometimes we don't, right? So the thing about free will versus determinism is I think culture comes into play a lot. I think that our opinions on what's important, our values come into play a lot when thinking about those things. So think to yourself about where you stand with that as well, and then maybe why, if there are any biases or anything like that. Just consider it. Another thing that is highlighted in that set of slides is the idea of individual differences versus cultural universals, or what are also known as universal principles. I think that's what the slides call it, universal principles. So, universal individual differences are like what makes us unique as people, right? I feel like I don't like, for instance, me, I don't like tomatoes. Um, and maybe that's something that's unique to me, Monique, but it's not unique to my society. It's not unique. I mean, it's not, it doesn't apply to my whole society, right? So that's what a cultural universal would be, or a universal principle. It would be something that you can kind of apply to the entire society. So, for instance, um, we look at, and they can kind of be intertwined as well. So when we look at things like taboos, right? There are things like incest that we look at and we go, ah, right? We are automatically, ah, we don't do that. No one, everybody's culture doesn't do that. And this is true. Incest, the idea of incest is a cultural universal. It is a universal principle. There, in cultures, that is not okay. However, what we define as incest is. So in a certain culture, it might not be okay for you to be in a relationship with your first cousin. In another culture, it might be perfectly fine. In another culture, it might not be okay. Three cousins down the line, once removed, right? So just think about that. And not everybody has the same views on everything, right? even in terms of what it means to be educated. Education looks very different. Like education is valued in cultures across the globe, right? Um, However, it might look very different whether it's sitting in a college classroom, whether it's being a tradesperson, whether it's learning how to cook and care for children, whatever it is, it might look very different. So that sums up our video on the first half of the set of slides. If you all have any questions about any of the things maybe I didn't talk about, or if you want me to get in depth about something else, just let me know.